You have probably seen a moth resting on your wall or circling a lamp late at night and assumed it was simply attracted to the light. But what if the light was never its real destination? At this very moment, tiny travelers are moving through the darkness outside your home, following ancient signals that existed long before houses, windows, or streetlights. Some are searching for flowers, others are searching for a mate, and a few may be trying to find their way using a navigation system most people never even realize exists. The surprising part is what happens when that system suddenly meets your front porch. If the hidden world of nature has ever made you look twice at something ordinary, subscribe because the most fascinating stories are often flying right past our windows every night. Most encounters with moths begin the same way. It is late in the evening, the house is quiet. A lamp glows in the corner of a room. Then somewhere near the ceiling a small shape appears. It circles once, then twice. Sometimes it taps gently against a wall. Sometimes it settles near a window and remains perfectly still. Most people barely notice it, and if they do, they usually assume the answer is simple. The moth came for the light. But the longer scientists study these animals, the more that simple explanation begins to fall apart. Because when researchers look closely at what moths are doing before they reach our homes, a very different picture starts to emerge. Imagine stepping outside on a warm summer night. The air may seem empty at first. The darkness feels calm and still. Yet above gardens, fields, forests, and neighborhoods, countless moths are already moving through the night. Some are traveling only a few hundred feet. Others may cover surprising distances before dawn arrives. They are not wandering randomly. They are following signals, invisible signals, signals carried by the wind, signals hidden in scent, signals written into the night sky itself. And this is where the story becomes far more interesting. Because a moth does not experience the world the way we do, humans rely heavily on vision. We look around and understand our surroundings through shapes, colors, and landmarks. Moths live in a different reality. For many species, smell is one of the most important senses they possess. A female moth can release tiny chemical messages into the air. These messages are so faint that a human would never detect them. Yet a male moth may find them from astonishing distances. He moves through the darkness following an invisible trail that exists entirely in the air around him. To us, the night may seem empty. To him, it is filled with information. Every current of wind carries clues. Every shift in the air changes the path ahead. But that is only one part of the story. Flowers are sending signals too. Many people think of flowers as daytime attractions, bright petals, bees, butterflies, sunshine. Yet some flowers are designed specifically for the night. They open after sunset. They release stronger fragrances in darkness. Their scents drift across the landscape, guiding nighttime visitors toward them. Certain moths become important pollinators, moving from flower to flower while most people are asleep. In fact, some plants depend heavily on moths to survive, which means that somewhere outside your window tonight, a moth may be searching for a flower rather than a light bulb. The strange part is what happens when human homes enter the picture. A house can accidentally imitate pieces of the natural world. A bright window may appear where no bright object should exist. A porch light may shine across an otherwise dark landscape. Reflections on glass may create confusing visual cues. Warm air escaping from a building may carry scents in unusual directions. To a moth moving through the night, this can become surprisingly difficult to interpret. And yet many people still wonder about one question. If moths are not actually trying to enter our homes, why do they seem so obsessed with lights? The answer may begin millions of years ago, long before cities, long before electric bulbs, long before windows and streetlights covered the landscape. For most of their evolutionary history, nighttime insects navigated beneath natural sources of light, the moon, the stars. These lights were extremely distant and remained relatively fixed in the sky. A moth could use them as reliable references while flying. The system worked beautifully for countless generations. Then humans introduced something entirely new: artificial lights, bright points of light much closer to the ground, lights that behave very differently from the moon, lights that appear in places where nature never intended them to be. Suddenly, an ancient navigation system encountered a completely unfamiliar environment. Most people never realize what they are actually watching when a moth circles a lamp. It may not be attraction in the way we usually imagine attraction, it may be confusion, a navigation process struggling to interpret a signal it was never designed to encounter. That endless looping flight around a bulb may be the visible result of instincts meeting a modern world. And the closer scientists look, the more complicated the picture becomes, because not every moth reacts the same way. Some species are strongly drawn toward artificial lights. Others seem less interested. Some may briefly investigate before continuing their journey. Others become trapped in a cycle of circling behavior for long periods. Even now, researchers continue studying exactly why different species respond differently. Nature rarely offers simple answers, and this tiny visitor on your wall turns out to be far more mysterious than it first appears. In fact, the moth resting quietly beside a lamp may have been traveling through an invisible network of scents, air currents, flowers, and celestial clues only moments earlier. Its journey did not begin in your house. Your house simply became an unexpected stop along the way. And once you start seeing moths through that lens, something changes. They no longer seem like random insects appearing out of nowhere. They become travelers moving through a hidden nighttime world that exists all around us, a world that most people never notice. And the deeper we look into that world, the stranger it becomes. Because finding a moth is one thing, understanding what it was truly searching for is something else entirely. Once we move beyond the light itself, an entirely different side of moth life begins to appear. The small insect that seems aimless inside a room is often carrying out behaviors that are surprisingly precise. Many moths spend their nights making decisions based on information that humans cannot see, hear, or smell. In some ways, the darkness is actually richer for them than daylight is for us. Every hour after sunset becomes part of a hidden communication network that stretches across forests, meadows, gardens, and even cities. One of the most remarkable parts of that network is scent. To understand how powerful smell can be for a moth, imagine standing in the middle of a vast landscape and trying to locate a single person without seeing or hearing them. For many animals, that would be impossible. Yet certain moths accomplish something similar through chemical signals alone. Researchers have discovered that male moths can detect tiny traces of scent released by females from extraordinary distances. The amounts involved are almost unimaginably small. And yet those signals can guide an insect through darkness with astonishing accuracy. The air itself becomes a map. But nature rarely relies on only one system. While scent helps moths find one another, many species are also paying attention to temperature, humidity, wind direction, and even the shape of the landscape around them. Some fly higher when conditions change. Others stay close to vegetation. Some wait patiently for the perfect moment before becoming active at all. What appears random from our perspective is often a series of decisions shaped by millions of years of evolution. And there is another detail most people never notice. Not all moths spend the entire night flying. In fact, many spend much of their time resting. During the day, they hide beneath leaves, inside bark crevices, under roofs, or in places that provide protection from predators. Then, when darkness arrives, they emerge and begin their nightly routines. This means the moth you see near your ceiling may have spent the previous day hidden only a short distance away without anyone realizing it existed. Entire populations can live around us almost invisibly. A backyard that appears quiet in daylight can transform into a busy ecosystem after sunset. And among the most important destinations in that ecosystem are flowers. Many people know that bees pollinate plants. Far fewer realize how much work happens after dark. Night-blooming flowers often rely on moths as visitors. Instead of attracting insects with bright daytime colors, these plants use fragrance. Their scents grow stronger as evening arrives. Some even release their most powerful aromas during specific hours of the night. To a moth flying through darkness, these scents function almost like glowing signs. Follow the fragrance, and food may be waiting. The relationship benefits both sides. The moth receives nectar, the plant receives pollination. It is a partnership that has existed for an incredibly long time. Some flowers have even evolved shapes that seem almost designed for particular moth species. Long flower tubes match long feeding structures. Timing matches activity patterns. The more scientists study these relationships, the more interconnected everything appears. And then there are the journeys themselves. Many people imagine moths spending their entire lives in one small area, yet some species travel surprisingly far. Weather conditions can carry moths across regions and sometimes across entire countries. On certain nights, invisible migrations occur overhead while people sleep peacefully below. Thousands or even millions of insects may be moving through the darkness without attracting attention. The sky that seems empty is often full of travelers. This is where our understanding of moths begins to shift. They are not simply insects gathering around porch lights. They are participants in large systems of movement, communication, pollination, and survival. They connect plants, habitats, and ecosystems in ways that are easy to overlook because most of their activity happens when humans are least likely to notice it. Yet despite all these adaptations, moths face a challenge that did not exist for most of their evolutionary history. Artificial light has spread across enormous portions of the planet. Streets glow through the night, buildings shine from countless windows, billboards illuminate the sky, entire cities create halos of brightness visible from miles away. For creatures adapted to natural darkness, this creates conditions unlike anything their ancestors experienced. Researchers have observed that artificial light can change feeding behavior, disrupt movement patterns, alter pollination activity, and interfere with natural navigation. Some moths spend valuable energy investigating lights instead of searching for food or mates. Others may avoid areas altogether. The effects ripple through ecosystems in ways scientists are still trying to understand. But perhaps the most fascinating detail is that moths continue adapting. Nature is never completely static. Generation after generation faces new challenges. Some populations appear to respond differently to artificial light than others. Certain species thrive in human environments, while others struggle. The story is still unfolding. Which means the moth sitting quietly beside a lamp tonight is not merely an insect caught in a room. It is part of a much larger experiment taking place across the world. An ancient creature equipped with ancient instincts, moving through a landscape transformed by a very modern species. And the deeper we look, the more extraordinary these ordinary encounters become. Because if the first mystery was why moths approach our homes at all, the next mystery may be even stranger. Hidden beneath their soft wings and gentle appearance are behaviors that seem almost impossible for such small creatures. Behaviors involving memory, deception, survival, and strategies that most people would never expect from something they barely notice on a wall. The deeper we look into the lives of moths, the harder it becomes to think of them as simple insects drifting through the night. Beneath those soft wings is a collection of adaptations so unusual that many sound more like ideas from science fiction than behaviors happening in gardens and forests around us every evening. Consider what a moth faces during a normal night. It must locate food, avoid predators, find shelter, communicate with others of its kind, and in many cases reproduce before its brief adult life comes to an end. Every hour matters, every mistake carries consequences, and over millions of years, nature has equipped moths with remarkable ways of surviving those challenges. One of the greatest dangers comes from bats. While moths are moving through darkness, bats are hunting. For a long time, humans knew very little about how this nightly conflict unfolded. Then, scientists discovered something extraordinary. Many moths can actually hear the ultrasonic calls used by hunting bats. These sounds are completely beyond normal human hearing. To us, the night seems silent. To a moth, it may suddenly fill with warning signals. The moment certain species detect approaching bat calls, they can react instantly. Some dive toward the ground, some change direction, some perform erratic flight patterns, others simply drop from the air and disappear into vegetation below. A battle is taking place overhead that most people never realize exists, but the surprises do not stop there. Some moths have developed even stranger defenses. Researchers have found species capable of producing ultrasonic clicks of their own. For years, nobody fully understood why. Eventually, evidence suggested several possibilities. In some cases, the clicks may warn predators that the moth tastes unpleasant. In others, they may interfere with a bat's ability to judge distance accurately. Imagine an insect no larger than a leaf, quietly carrying technology that resembles electronic countermeasures. Nature often arrives at solutions that seem impossible until we discover them. And then there are the disguises. During daylight hours, many moths become masters of invisibility. Some resemble dead leaves so perfectly that they almost vanish against tree bark. Others imitate bird droppings. Some look like broken twigs. A few species possess wing patterns so convincing that predators overlook them entirely. What appears ordinary to us may actually be one of the most sophisticated camouflage systems in nature. The goal is simple: survive until night returns. Yet perhaps the most fascinating transformations happen before moths ever take flight. Most people know that moths begin life as caterpillars, but the process connecting those two stages remains one of nature's most astonishing events. Inside the protective shell of a pupa, the animal undergoes a dramatic reorganization. Structures used during caterpillar life are broken down. New structures emerge, wings form, flight muscles develop, sensory systems change. The result is so different that it almost seems like two separate creatures sharing the same life. A crawling leaf eater eventually becomes a flying traveler of the night, and hidden within that transformation are mysteries scientists are still exploring. Some research suggests that certain memories may survive the process. In other words, experiences from caterpillar life may influence the adult moth that emerges later. The idea sounds unbelievable, yet nature continues revealing layers of complexity where simplicity was once assumed. Another detail that surprises many people involves lifespan. Some adult moths live only a short time. Certain species emerge with one primary goal: find a mate and reproduce. In fact, a few adult moths do not feed at all. Their entire adult existence relies on energy stored during the caterpillar stage. They emerge, fly, search, communicate, reproduce, and die. Everything is focused on a narrow window of time. When viewed from that perspective, the moth fluttering near a window becomes something different. It is not simply wandering. It may be carrying out one of the most important journeys of its life. And there is an even stranger layer beneath all of this. Moths are not alone in the night. They share their world with parasites, microscopic organisms, predators, and countless other species. Some caterpillars become hosts for tiny parasitic wasps. These insects lay eggs inside them. The developing larvae grow within their host before eventually emerging. It sounds unsettling, yet such relationships are woven deeply into natural ecosystems. Every organism influences another. Every life becomes connected to countless others. What appears peaceful on the surface often contains hidden interactions unfolding continuously beyond human awareness. But nature rarely creates complexity without purpose. These relationships help regulate populations. They shape evolutionary pressures. They influence survival strategies across entire ecosystems. The night world is not chaotic. It is structured in ways we are only beginning to understand. And perhaps that is the most surprising realization of all. The moth sitting motionless on a wall may appear insignificant, yet its existence intersects with flowers blooming after sunset, migrating insects crossing great distances, hunting bats scanning the darkness, hidden parasites shaping populations, and ancient navigation systems older than human civilization itself. Every small moth belongs to a network of relationships stretching far beyond the boundaries of a single backyard or house. Which brings us back to the original question: what is the moth in your house actually looking for? By now, the answer seems less straightforward than ever. Sometimes it may be searching for a mate, sometimes for nectar, sometimes for a route through the darkness. Sometimes it may simply be trying to understand a world transformed by artificial light. But the deeper truth is that the moth was never really searching for your house. It was following a much older story. A story that began long before windows, lamps, and cities existed. And understanding that story changes the way we see these quiet visitors forever. Because once you recognize how much hidden life surrounds a single moth, it becomes impossible to look at one in quite the same way again. By this point, the moth in the corner of a room no longer seems like a random visitor. It feels more like a messenger from a world that usually remains hidden from view. A world that begins to wake, just as most people close their doors, switch off their screens, and prepare for sleep. The remarkable thing is that this hidden world is not far away. It does not exist in remote jungles or unexplored wilderness. It exists outside ordinary windows, above familiar streets, around gardens, parks, and quiet backyards. Every evening as daylight fades, countless small lives begin their work, and most of it happens without an audience. If you step outside on a warm night and remain still for a few minutes, something interesting happens. At first, the darkness may seem empty. Then small details begin to emerge. A faint movement near a flower, a shadow crossing through a beam of light, a soft flutter that lasts only a second before disappearing again. The longer you watch, the more activity you notice. It is almost as though an entirely different version of the world has appeared. In reality, it was there all along. Human beings are simply not very good at noticing it. We are creatures of daylight. Much of nature is not. For millions of years, life has been adapting to darkness in ways that are easy to overlook. Moths are only one piece of that story, yet they may be among the best reminders that another world exists alongside our own, a world governed by different rhythms and different priorities. While we sleep, flowers are releasing fragrance. Pollinators are searching for nectar. Predators are hunting. Tiny signals are moving through the air. Journeys are beginning and ending. New generations are being created. The night is not empty. It is busy in ways we rarely imagine. And perhaps that is why moths capture our attention so easily. There is something gentle about them. Unlike many animals, they rarely announce themselves loudly. They do not roar, sing, bark, or call for attention. They simply appear, quietly, briefly, almost as if they have drifted out of the darkness itself. Then, just as suddenly, they are gone again. Yet during that short encounter, they invite us to notice something larger. They encourage us to look beyond the obvious explanation. A moth on a wall seems ordinary until you realize it may have followed invisible scent trails through the night. It may have crossed fields, avoided predators, searched for flowers, responded to distant signals, and navigated using instincts older than human history. The creature appears small. The story behind it is enormous. And there is another reason these encounters feel meaningful. In a world filled with constant noise and information, moths remind us that many of nature's most fascinating events happen quietly. They do not demand attention. They simply continue whether we notice them or not. The flower continues releasing its fragrance. The moth continues searching. The ecosystem continues functioning. Life unfolds according to patterns that existed long before we arrived and will likely continue long after we are gone. There is something comforting about that idea. It reminds us that we are surrounded by processes much larger than ourselves. We often think of nature as something separate from daily life, somewhere far away, somewhere visited during vacations or documentaries. Yet a single moth can reveal how close nature really is. The boundary between the human world and the natural world is often thinner than we imagine. Sometimes it is no more than a window pane. Sometimes it is a porch light glowing in the dark. Sometimes it is a small insect resting near the ceiling while invisible stories continue unfolding outside. The next time you see a moth in your home, you may find yourself looking at it differently. Instead of asking why it came inside, you might wonder where it was before. What signals was it following? What flowers had it visited? How far had it traveled? What dangers had it avoided? What part of its journey had been interrupted by the appearance of a light that did not exist for most of its evolutionary history? Those questions transform a simple encounter into something much more interesting. Because the truth is that we rarely see animals as they truly are. We see only brief moments, fragments of much larger stories. A moth resting on a wall is one such fragment. Behind it lies an entire hidden world of movement, communication, adaptation, and survival. A world operating every night just beyond our attention. And perhaps that is the most beautiful lesson hidden within such an ordinary creature. The natural world does not become fascinating only when we travel somewhere exotic or discover something rare. Sometimes it becomes fascinating the moment we slow down enough to notice what has always been there. A moth circling a lamp, a flower opening after sunset, a faint movement in the darkness. Small things that reveal much larger truths. The more closely we look, the more the familiar begins to feel extraordinary. And maybe that is what the moth was really offering all along. Not a mystery about why it entered the house, but a reminder that life is unfolding everywhere around us, even in places we think we already know. Every night, while cities glow and houses grow quiet, countless tiny travelers continue moving through the darkness, following scents, following instincts, following paths written into nature long before human beings ever switched on a light. And somewhere among them, another moth is already beginning its journey.